That says a lot. That says a lot.
That's good to know.
That's why I wanted you to know that we were recording.
I'm sure this can tell us. Or you can look up Romans 4:25. What does it say?
Well, it's based on the scripture of Romans 4:25. Now, if you would open my wife is not what to say. So should we listen to it? Okay, let's see. That light turns on. That light does turn
Yeah, that's something else, right? Is Rio still in that?
All right, I think it's time to begin. Hopefully this is recording. Welcome to you who are here live in Lisa Cannon's amazing Danish chapel. It's a beautiful space for those who aren't here, so hopefully we can maybe, if we behave ourselves, she might have us come again and we'll be able to see it in real time. Thank you again, Lisa, for opening your home chapel to us. And good to see all you real people. Well, they're all real people, but people in real time in the same space. Still getting used to only doing this for Zoom for 3 years, so it's just nice to together again. Let's see, grateful to Darren for being willing to share his time and his knowledge, his wisdom, his wonderful spirit. If you haven't read that book, it is quite remarkable. Like 8 pages to the appendix, so almost finished it, and it is really something to read. And my wife says I need to speak up a little bit, so I'll try to speak up a little bit. Thanks. And thank you, God, for a little bit of rain. Hopefully we'll get some more. So I've asked Rachel Lordson, who heads up Mesa Mormon Stewardship Environmental Alliance. Right? One of 2 groups I associate with that are that people in or associated with the LDS Church involved in to try to improve our standing here on earth with the other living creatures and walk with them instead of trying to boss them around. Anyway, I asked her to do a land acknowledgement. First asked Darren if he'd be okay with that. He thought that would be fine, and so she will do that before we turn the time over to Darren.
So we'd like to acknowledge that the land that we're meeting on here is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. And I personally am so grateful for the opportunity to learn and to hear from Darren and the other Indigenous voices that I have learned from in many areas, both history and in ecological knowledge and wisdom. And I hope that we may work together to heal the wounds that have occurred in the past, and worked also to work together to make a future that is bright for us all.
I just saw you the other day, young man.
Thank you, Rachel.
We're going to talk a little bit about history, healing, and some indigenous wisdom, if you'll indulge me. But I want you to know, for a long time, American history has been written and taught as this single story. It was a narrative of nation building, really, that united its participants into this single American experience. I think you could say it was a national success story, celebrating human triumphs that were made possible in a society based on equality and liberty for all, or so we thought. In years past, historians have sometimes ignored or dismissed peoples whose experiences didn't conform to that master narrative. And oftentimes, they excluded the experience of the American Indian. After all, our story is one of suffering and decline rather than one of progress and happiness. But times change, and the history and the stories that we tell about history changes too. I have come to realize over a lifetime that when we reduce history to just data And when we remove some of the storytelling or the emotional side of history, we lose some of the humanity that makes history so important. But I think that's why our story is so important. If you were to drive just up past Preston, Idaho, on Highway 91, you'll round a curve that opens to a beautiful panoramic view of the Bear River bottomlands below. On a cold winter day, if you know where to look, you can see the steam rising from the edge of the river. 158 years ago, it was at that exact spot that there were 700 Shoshones who were spending their winter days. Hot springs nearby provided a warmth and a welcome place to catch their breath, catch up with family and friends during the cold winter months. We called this place Moso de Guani, which means home of the lungs. A half a mile to the east, Colonel Patrick Edward Connor and his California Volunteers, 220 cavalry, had this same bird's eye view of the bottomlands below on January 29th in 1863. As they made their way down a ravine towards a sleeping Indian village by the steaming waters. When something terrible happens, that place where human lives were lost, it seems to take on new meanings. By that, I mean the 14.6 acres at the World Trade Center, the beaches of Normandy, a homemade memorial at the side of the road where a fatal traffic accident occurred. Places that haunt and hurt for the wounds that they hold. But for some reason, they still compel us to go back. Have you ever had a memory sneak out of your eye and roll down your cheek? I have that all the time when I think about the massacre of my people. For thousands of years, tribal elders would sit down with the children, tell them stories. The stories are always the same. There was never a word out of place. It had to be that way. It had to be accurate. Our children needed to hear the stories as their children that heard the stories, because in our culture, nothing is ever written down. I went through this process with my grandmother. Sure.
People on Zoom are not getting this. I just found out. I'm so sorry, dude.
You're good.
Oops. What's going on here? This video, what file would it be? Showing it's recording.
Don't ask me. I can barely say anything.
Gosh, why? If I just switch this up there.